strides this year.
How well do you think WLUSU management is currently operating, and what do you think you could do better?
Again, I sound like a broken record here, but I think we run internally pretty well. Spending-wise, we need to be a lot more accountable, and I mean, talking about things like the terrace expansion, for example, I mean, the spending was not even, it's funny, the spending was not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem was the communication was awful, and we broke procedures, executive limitations. And that's first and foremost the responsibility of the president to ensure that they're, in the vision of the board that they give, but also not doing those things that are within executive limitations. So those are problems. But the biggest thing, like I said, we need to get, we have a lot of power as a student union, but we need to get that psychology back that says we are a strong union. We're going to work with the university in good faith, in a professional manner, but we're not going to simply lie down and let them walk over us, right? The operating agreement is being negotiated right now, and there's some things in there that, I don't have all the details right now because a lot of it is confidential. But the issue is that we are conceding a lot of stuff to the university, and if we're going to do that, we need to get something back. And I do know a little bit more, but unfortunately, confidentiality tells me that I can't say much at the moment. But it's basically saying that, you know what, if they're going to ask us for big things, we need to at least come back and say, okay, we'll be reasonable, but this is what we want back. And damaging the relationship with the university shouldn't be our reason for not pushing for more. As I said before, the relationship with the university is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And that's the psychology we need to get back to our university, to our student.
How would you ensure that the everyday student benefits from your presidency?
Well, I mean, this sort of, again, two-pronged thing. Internally ensuring that we are running efficient services, always improving on that side. Things like foot patrol, for example. That's safety is a huge core thing. If you're going to be academically successful, you need to feel safe, right? So ensuring services like that are adequately resourced, that our businesses are running efficiently and not away to the student. And then going back to internal advocacy again, ensuring that we're standing up for students for things like student to faculty ratios, right? That's a big thing we talk about when we're going to the university. We choose to go to university. We're like, oh, it's a small campus, a small field. But the problem is the university is constantly over-enrolling students, and our classroom sizes are getting bigger and bigger, and the quality of teaching, questionable, because even if you have a great prof, a bigger class size is not conducive to academic success and quality academics. And the last thing I'll say is one of my 5 pillars is the notion of an open presidency, empowering students to feel like their input, their concerns, and their ideas are being heard. I'm not going to spoon feed students, and I don't think they expect that. But they do expect is a president who is actively going out there and facilitating some communication between students. And I talked about being physically present in high traffic areas on campus a few hours a week at least. I want to do more, but I'm promising what I can deliver, and if I can deliver more, absolutely will do it. Right? If I'm not around, things like drop boxes on campus, like very simple things, online, having a more prominent Ask WLUSU button on both the WLUSU website and looking into the My Laurier spot. Like just very simple things, but facilitating that communication. Having more proactive document release from anything that is released to the board in open meetings should be available to all students so they can review and hold the president accountable through the board directors or in themselves, for themselves. They're not able to do that very well right now, right? So that's sort of what we need to do, empowering the student so they can, if they see things that are going wrong, they can change it so that, going back to your question, their day-to-day lives are always functioning the best, if I can say. So.
This sort of relates to what you were just talking about, but how do you feel about student engagement with WLUSU in general?
Yeah. It basically boils down to this. The student union represents all students. But the issue is that there's this notion that there's WLUSU people and there's non-WLUSU people, right? And yes, there's a lot of volunteers that volunteer for the union, and there's people that don't volunteer for the union. That's perfectly fine. I mean, you do what you feel is best for you. But the biggest thing is that it creates this huge division, right? And I try to address that by empowering the student, through that open presidency like I was talking about. But the biggest thing, talking to people is, I think the cleavage also exists because we're not acting on behalf of all students, right? We provide services for all students, we provide opportunities for all students, but not all students, benefit from it. What all students do benefit from is internal advocacy, pushing for a lower class sizes between the faculty and the students, the student-faculty ratio, right? Better quality of professors, right? That internal advocacy, right, is the most core and the most important thing the union can do. And beyond that, it is something that represents all students, right? So that's what we need to get back to. The question always to me is, what does WLUSU do for me, right? And I can talk about things like the services we do and all that sort of stuff, but the problem is, I can't truthfully say to them that we are actually doing things that affect all students, right? Because our internal advocacy has been very, very weak. So that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do to bridge that gap between people who decide to volunteer in the union or don't decide to volunteer in the union, or decide to volunteer in the greater KW community, in Brantford as well. Or on campus, Res Life, Diversity Center, the Core, like anywhere else, right? They don't have to be a volunteer in the union to feel empowered to get stuff from the union, right? And that needs to change. And I think refocusing as an internal advocacy back to an internal advocacy standpoint, is the biggest thing we can do. And like I said, it's not something that's going to change overnight, but we need to get going and lay that foundation moving forward. And I think that's my biggest focus, the biggest themes around this campaign.
This is the last question.
Cool.
What is something about you that the electorate may not know?
Well, it's sort of, I guess I can say two things. The first one is, for people who don't know me, they see me as this sort of guy who's doing flash mobs and crazy commercials and stuff like that. The reason why I did that is because I don't necessarily have the best name recognition out there as some of the other candidates do. So I was trying to get my name out there, trying to have some fun during this campaign. I think it's very, very important to engage students. But I do bring some substance. I think my platform is very comprehensive but achievable. It's very priority driven. I have a background in policy. I'm a policy governance sort of nerd. I'm a political science student. That's all down my alley, right? So that sense, for people who do know me, they say that I'm very sort of dedicated to that sort of thing, and policy and stuff like that, and that I need to get out a little bit more, have a bit more fun. They said when I do have fun, it's great, but they encourage me to relax a little bit sometimes, and stop sitting around and doing work. I love having fun. I'll do as much as I can, but I'm a very ambitious sort of person, so I like getting a lot of stuff done. That's why my platform is, has a lot of stuff in it, but I genuinely feel that I can get it done. I guess, in a fun sense, some people don't realize I'm a Leaf fan, and I'm a Maple Leafs fan, and I'll let them know that that's about the most delusional thing that I have. Jays fan as well, and that's not quite as delusional right now because they're moving in the right direction. But other than that, I think that's the big broad themes. But I guess hopefully the more and more I get to know students, the more and more I can talk to them about me and their concerns, their input, and ideas.
All right, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.